Alright, picking up right where we left off. I believe we've proven a case that there's another person at the scene. So now we just gotta tie them into, drag them into, get their testimony. What's the point, eh? Why go all this trouble and fight so hard? The likes of me. What? Well, you saw it. That picture. What picture? Ah, you mean this? The photograph taken by Harley's red-handed recorder. Well, I think they would have to capture a scene like this, that's for sure. It's hopeless. Anybody who's gonna see that think I did it, ain't they? I won't pretend it wasn't a bit of a shock when the prosecution first presented it to the court. Surely you've have your doubts about me now. You can't still think I'm innocent. Of course I can. Jenny, why don't you talk to us? Tell us what really happened that night. Huh? We just carefully managed to piece together a lot of new information, but still, I'd really like to hear it from you. Alright then. It was after we had that dinner together at your place, right, Iris? Then we all had a chat up in your office, didn't we? Yeah, I remember. After that, I just couldn't get to sleep, so I slipped out and went down the street to the 2 to 1, to Winnebake's place. I had to know if Iris' story was there or not. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it's about or nothing. But if you ask me, there's some in it that Sholmes don't like, so he won't want people reading. That's why I lied to Iris about sticking in the lug with Winnebago for safekeeping. At least that's what I thought at the time. So you broke into Winnebago's. I just had to know if it was there or not. I mean, I had no idea all that was going to kick off, did I? I struck the lock and snuck inside, as dark as you can like in there. So I gave the oil lamp on the counter a bit of a wick, and that's when... What do you think you're doing? I nearly died, I did. And the next thing I knew... I grabbed the gun off the counter and was waving it in the air like... I don't know what. Ah, you're the girl who was in here this afternoon. I didn't think pickpockets went for armed robbery. The manuscript. Have you got it here? Did Sholmes leave a load of papers with you? A story. I beg your pardon? The Hound of the... something or another. Is it here? I want to see it. I'm sorry, young lady, but I'd sooner die than relinquish an article belonging to one of my customers. I don't want it. What do I do with it anyway? I just want to see it's here, that's all. Oh, you want to see it, do you? I want to know if Sholmes really pawned it here or not. Please, just let me see it and I'll go. Very well then. But for pity's sake, stop waving my gun around, would you? So then the old cove unlocked the storeroom door and we both went inside. And it was there, alright. The mantle script. Holmes wasn't lying after all. You did all that just to check for me, Jenny. Anyway, there was a bit of a kick-up out in the main of a bit of the shop. Skulkin brothers arriving on the scene, yes. What was that noise? Someone's breaking in. Dear me. Is there some burglars' convention here tonight that I don't know about? I think I forgot to shut the door behind me. Sorry. Better go and take care of it. Can I possibly have my gun back? Oh. I'll come with you and... Now, don't be foolish, young girl. You must stay right here. Don't leave this room under any circumstances. And with that, he took the gun out of my hands and walked out the back into the shop. I hung back in the storeroom, like he said, straining my ears in the dark to hear what was going on. It sounded like they got into a bit of a scrap. I started to think I should help, see? So I was just about to go out to the storeroom myself, when... I heard a couple of shots go off. 2, I think. Almost at the same time. And there was, right at my feet, laying face down on the floor. I was right next to the storeroom door, so I slammed it shut and locked it quick as you like. Because you thought whoever shot Mr. Winnebago might come for you? Yeah, so I went to grab the old cove's gun. I figured I'd put up a fight at least. But when I got the better look at him, I knew. Winnebank was a goner. I felt funny in my head all of a sudden, kind of dizzy, and after that, I don't remember nothing. It must be when you passed out, Gina. If I hadn't done what I had done, the Oak Cove might still be alive. Did you tell the police everything you told us? Of course I did. They didn't believe a word of it, did they? All they said was, if I kept telling the lies, it'd make things even worse for me. It'll be alright, Ginny. Don't worry. Just stay strong for a little longer. Runa's about to put the real culprit through the mill. That cove was there in the afternoon. That Egbert Benedict. I still remember how he looked at me, like I was nothing. He was there that night. I don't know his real name yet, but I'm convinced that he's involved somehow. Anyway, thank you for telling us what happened, Gina. I appreciate your honesty. You what? You can leave it all in Runo's capable hands now, Jenny. Mr. Nara Odo? Yes? How come you trust me? I don't get it. I mean, haven't you forgotten what happened here before? Come on, it was only 2 months ago. Me and McGillard, we told you a whole pack of lies. You got the bog trotter, and you got the bog trotter off with them, even though he was a killer. No, I can never forget that. Oh, I did what I thought was best at the time, but the pain of that error of judgment doesn't get any easier to bear. Still, don't forget I also made you a promise. I told you that I'd be on your side to the bitter end, no matter what. What if I'm lying? You could be working to get another killer off the hook for all you know. I was once in your position, Gina. I was the accused in a trial. You were? Before I left Japan, I was accused of murder. And strange as it might sound, the circumstances of the crime were pretty damning. I was sure that no one would believe it wasn't me who'd done it. But Bruno, there was one person who stood up for me, who believed in me, and was prepared to defend me. My best friend. Yonosuke, no one believes in you more than I do. Leave this to me. All you need to do is put your faith in me, and I'll do the rest. I was so happy, I cried. But even then, somewhere inside me, I couldn't help thinking, surely he doesn't really believe in me. Not completely. But I was wrong. As soon as my trial began, it was obvious. He had an absolute, unwavering belief in me. And in turn, I developed an absolute, unwavering belief in him. Since then, I came to realize, if you want someone to believe in you, you have to believe in the other person first. But you're saying, I promise you, Gina, that no matter what happens, I'll keep believing in you. Don't need to worry. I won't let you down. Even though I'm a diver, and a no-good liar. You're not like McGillard. I know that. Eh? That's right. You're our friend, Ginny. Iris, we know you better than you think. And we've come to the conclusion that you're someone we can trust. Yes, that's really all we need to know. Exactly. Mr. Nara Odo, Defendant Gina Lestrade and her legal representative. Court proceedings are about to resume. Please head into the courtroom immediately. Yes, of course, thank you. I've been both a defendant and a defending lawyer in my time, so I knew only too well just how hard it was to put all your faith in another. And I also knew realizes how hard it was to bear the burden of another's putting all their faith in you. This is it at last, the final chapter, the final battle. Wish me luck, Sato-san, and I hope you're watching over me too, partner.
Am I helping?
You're absolutely helping. 17th of April, 1:41 p.m. Old Bailey Court. I hereby call this court to order as we resume the trial of Miss Gina Lestrade. Lord Von Zieks, have you successfully subpoenaed the witness? The subpoena was delivered to the communication station where the man works immediately, my lord. However, the heavy rain has delayed the arrival of his carriage, it would seem. I see. Then let us turn our attention to Inspector Gregson's precis of the case heard by the court this morning. The glaring omission of a third bullet in your report is a serious blunder, Inspector. Yes, I can only apologize, my lord. And although the defense's chemical analysis of the blood scene makes for a compelling argument, I cannot permit such an untried methods to be used in the evidence in my courtroom. It's a big mistake to cross Hurley and me. A very big mistake. My lord, the subpoenaed witness has just arrived in the building. Thank you, officer. Show him to the stand without delay. Mr. Edward Benedict. I didn't expect to be crossing paths with him again so soon. It's certainly not like this. Thank you for complying with the court's subpoena at such short notice, sir. But of course, my lord. As an upstanding member of London society, it is my pleasure to oblige. Now kindly state your name and occupation for the record. Ashley Graydon, Communications Officer. Mr. Graydon and I both work at London Central's communications station. Now perhaps somebody would kindly explain what all this is about. You were appraised of the situation by the court officer on your way here, I presume. Yes, I was. Something to do with the murder that took place at the pawnbrokers at Baker Street. And some nonsense about me having been there on the night in question. That is the accusation, indeed. It really is beyond a joke, you know. Very well. Without further delay, the court will hear your testimony now, Mr. Graydon. You will respond to the accusation made against you under oath. Gladly, my lord. Gladly. Naturally, I have occasion to make use of pawnbroking services from time to time. But are you to seriously suggest that I concluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder? I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation, even if certain parties here present claim that my blood was found at the scene. Some Sacramento detective's homebrewed tincture can hardly be taken as serious evidence. So you deny the accusation completely, do you? I must say, I'm dismayed. For the highest court in the land to be swayed by this self-professed detective's toy. It was the will of the jury, and our great British justice system demands that the jury's will is upheld. And it would seem we have a misfortune of the most inept assembly of the jurors today. Golly, how long am I expected to be detained here? If following the defense's cross-examination, your involvement in this matter has not been established, you'll be free to leave immediately. Good, and I shall be away in time for my afternoon tea. Some small consolation, at least. Let us not hold up Mr. Graydon any longer than necessary, counsel. Proceed with the cross-examination. So, we meet again, Mr. Egbert Benedict. Or is it Mr. Graydon? What? My apologies. You are... I can't do voice acting, you know that. Ryunosuke Naruhodo, defense lawyer. We have met. If you say so. Ashley Graydon. Enchanted. So... I trust we can conclude this quickly. But I'm not holding your flashy hat while we do. I swear this feels like just a giant JoJo reference. The way he's like, eccentric moves and everything. With a big ass top hat like that. It feels very JoJo. Naturally, I had the occasion to make use of Kronberg. Okay, so that doesn't really help us, but you're seriously suggesting I concluded with these thugs to break into the place on the night of the murder. Have you seen these two men before? This pair? No, I don't associate with criminals. Said by the man who introduced himself as Eggert Benedict. I'd like to know who I have to thank for this. Who made this outlandish accusation against me? The young lawyer there in the black. This is a farce. Whose idea was it to permit an outsider to work in the British court anyway? Well, needless to say. So that didn't help me. I have no intention of admitting to such an outrageous accusation.
Hold it!
Were you at around 1 in the morning on the night in question, sir? This is past the hour at which I would normally retire. Certainly. I was not in the company of these rapscallions. You're able to prove that.
Objection!
Sure. Listen carefully, my Lord Nipponese friend, for you two appear to be under the gross misapprehension on this point. What do you mean? The witness maintains he was not at the scene of the crime. He has no obligation to prove his absence. If your accusation is that the witness was present at the scene, the obligation lies with you to prove your assertion. You will fulfill that obligation before putting any more unreasonable questions to the witness. A silent victory wiggle. Thanks. Even if certain parties here present claim that my blood was found at the scene.
Hold it!
Blood was found at the scene of the crime, there's no question of that. Mr. Sholm's chemical analysis has positively identified the substance as such. But I'm not the only human to have blood running through my veins, am I? How can you be sure that the blood is mine? It could equally be the blood of one of these two miscreants. Every individual's blood have a slight different composition, it seems. Mr. Sholm's chemical is able to differentiate different blood samples by... Spare me the science lesson. Who is this Sholm's character anyway? Oh, I assumed all Londoners would know the name. He's a great, well, a renowned detective. Even you are unable to bring yourself to say, great detective. A great detective, you say? No, we're in the realm of fairy... now we're in the realm of fairy tales, are we?
Excuse me!
Thank you. You have something to say about that, Mr. Shulkin. What? Me? No, the Mr. Skulkin next to you. Right, I've had it up to here with this. How many times do I gotta tell you? Yes, I know. You're not Big Bruv Skulky. Mr. Nash Skulkin. Oh, blimey, Governor. You what? Is it not the case that when Mr. Graydon just spoke, a thought went through your mind? Do you care to share that thought with the court? Thoughts? I don't have none of them. It must have been him. You what? Mr. Nash Skulkin, answer the question, please. What went through your mind when Mr. Graydon just spoke? Nothing. Honest, Gov, nothing. I was just thinking... If he waves his arm like that much more, I'll open the wound again, that's all. What wound? Where he took the bullet, of course. It was only 2 days ago. It gotta be healed up yet. So I was, well, you know, I was worrying for him and... Oh, hell's bells. Mr. Graydon, did you hear that? What? Your comrade is worried about you, it seems. On account of your injured arm. My lord. Yes, Mr. Graydon? I have no idea what these two wretches are talking about. Certainly, I shouldn't be expected to answer anything in relation to their mindless insinuations. We know that someone other than the victim was hit by a bullet at the scene of the crime 2 nights ago. From the height of the bullet hole in the wall, that person was likely hit in the upper arm or thereabouts. Perhaps you'd allow the court official to examine your arm, sir. The left arm that you're currently grasping with your right hand, as if in pain. No, I refuse. You have shown no evidence whatsoever that links me to these common thieves. Accordingly, I'm not obliged to permit any such invasion of my privacy. And as I've already said, I'm completely uninvolved in all this. I never had anything to do with the pawnbrokery where my fellow was killed whatsoever. I take offense at the insinuation that I was in any way involved. You claim to have nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Winnebake's pawnbrokery, my lord. The defense would like the last statement to be added to Mr. Graydon's former testimony. Very well, counsel. Usually when a statement gets added, that is usually something where
Objection!
yeah, we could present the disc, can't we? You ever seen this disc before, Mr. Graydon? Why? Is it supposed to mean something? This disc was until the day of his murder in the pawn of Mr. Winnebake's shop. It was redeemed by the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, that afternoon. However, somebody mysteriously appeared to try to take it from her. And that somebody was you, of course. Wasn't it, Mr. Graydon? As I've reiterated numerous times now, you are mistaken. It was not me. I've never seen that disc before in my life. It may have escaped your notice, but there's a small smear of blood on the disc. Yes, resulting from an abrasion from the thumb, perhaps. That's right. The surface of the disc is covered in hundreds of tiny metal bumps. In the skirmish to acquire the disc, the thumb of the person who tried to take it suffered a minor laceration. So, while the disc bears the remnants of that skirmish in the form of this smear of blood, the thumb of the person in question must bear the remnants also, in the form of a scratch. Good gracious, indeed it must. Mr. Graydon, you refused to allow a court officer to examine your arm before. Are you now going to refuse us to examine your thumb? Because I have no doubt that it bears a small scratch consistent with the smear of blood on this disc. Well, well. It would seem I underestimated you. What is the meaning of this? So you admit it now. You admit you have a scratch in your thumb from when you attempted to take the disc from the defendant. Well, Mr. Graydon? It would appear there have been something of a misunderstanding here. You did not attempt to take the disc, as you put it. No, quite the reverse. What are you trying to say? It's really quite simple, you see. The disc was mine from the outset. Is there some crime in taking an item that you own out of pawn? What? It would seem, Mr. Graydon, that in this piece of evidence, my learned friend has established a link between yourself and the incident. Accordingly, you will tell the court everything you know about this disc now.
Is he starting to like you now?
Hmm?
Is the prosecutor starting to like you now?
I don't know yet. He's still kind of really, racist.
He said his educated friend, didn't he?
Yeah, but it's kind of like a backhanded compliment. Of like, oh, I didn't expect this out of Nipponese. Though I'm quite sure it was nothing whatsoever to do with the pawnbroker's murder. There's a note on the disc that says from Mr. McGilded, but the item belongs to me. The redemption ticket was stolen from me by the accused, a filthy gutterling, on the day in question. I proceeded at once to the shop in order to explain my situation and redeem my article. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. In other words, I had absolutely no reason to break into the shop later that same night. Did I hear you correctly, sir? McGilded, you say, the famous London philanthropist, who perished in this very courtroom 2 months ago after being acquitted of a most distinctly messy murder. Yes, my lord. The one and the same. Good lord. Mr. Graydon, are you saying that Mr. McGilden and yourself are acquainted? Yes, that's correct. Order. Well, I certainly didn't expect to hear that name uttered here in my courtroom again. According to what Gina told us, this disc was placed in the pawn on the fateful night 2 months ago. Mr. McGillen himself gave instructions to deposit at Windibanks. It's funny that Mr. Graydon is here claiming the disc belongs to him then, isn't it? In all likelihood, he's lying. So he appeared that afternoon at Windibanks in order to get his hands on McGillen's disc for some reason. Counsel, you'll commence your cross-examination, please. There's a note on the disc saying from Gilded, but the item belongs to me. It is kind of interesting, like, why would you, if you knew, because he knew that the disc was taken by the police, so what, was there something else they went into the shop to steal?
Hold it!
Would you care to explain how this belongs to you? As you will observe, a communications officer such as myself commands a fine salary. You are certainly exquisitely dressed, sir. So you see, I have little need to make use of services provided by the pawnbrokery trade. However, I did once find myself in difficulties having misplaced my purse whilst on an errand, which is why I pawned my fine black overcoat to the broker in question. You claim that was your overcoat. Obviously, and in my haste, I clean forgot. The music box disc was in its pocket. And yet, there is a note on it that reads, for McGilden. I'm a collector of rare and unusual music box music. I first met Mr. McGilden at the Gentleman's Club in the city and was interested to discover. He shared my penchant in that area. So the disc in question is a pre-production sample. I promised to let Mr. McGilden hear it. But then you forgot that it was in the pocket of the overcoat you were forced to pawn. Yes, exactly. Jeannie didn't mention any of that in her testimony 2 months ago, did she? No, because McGillen had threatened to keep her mouth shut, which means that if we dig too deeply here, it's going to expose Gina's perjury. Oh dear, this is complicated, isn't it? Let's leave it alone for the time being. The redemption ticket was stolen from you by the accused, that filthy gutterling, on the day in question.
Hold it!
So you're saying that Miss Lestrade lifted the ticket from your pocket or bag? That's right, despite being mindful of danger when walking into insalubrious areas of her kind frequent. Miss Lestrade did no such thing. Of course you would take that stance. The girl is a regular offender. You came to the pawnbrokery that day prepared with all the information you needed to identify the defendant. You were looking for her. That's what brought you to Windibanks. To get your hands on Mr. McGillen's disc.
Objection!
My learned friend is a veritable font of nonsense. Nonsense? I concur with the prosecution. Counsel, you will refrain from conjecturing in this way. Is that clear? Yes, my lord. And I will continue with my testimony for what possible use could it be. I feel like the police were there after that incident, right? So they could back us up. That is... I proceeded at once to shop in order to explain the situation within my article. I mean, they should have a situation report from that day, from that incident. Have you ever been to Windibanks before? Only once, for the purposes of pawning something. But like many, I enjoy browsing in such establishments. So when you noticed that the pickpocket had taken your ticket, you chased after her. Is that correct? Yes, that's right. I didn't notice at first, of course, such as the art of a pick purse. But when I did, I headed to the pawnbrokery at once, in order to reclaim my coat before the thief could. I was merely trying to recover what was rightfully mine in the first place. He can say what he likes because he knows we get no evidence to contradict him on this. In the end, of course, the disc was taken by the police. Yes, it was taken by Inspector Gregson here, wasn't it? That's right. This is the very man. Apparently the police are collecting anything that has connection to Mr. McGilden.
That right?
As evidence.
Excuse me!
Is something wrong, Inspector? Huh? Well, what do you mean? The last remark Mr. Graydon made in his testimony seemed to trouble you in some way. No, it didn't. It's nothing. Leave it alone. Let me ask you this, Inspector. Why is Scotland Yard gathering Mr. McGilden's possessions? I can't tell you something like that, Sunshine. What is it, Inspector? Investigative secrets? Yes, exactly. You should all know about that. Magnus McGilded, who died so unexpectedly after his trial 2 months ago. A man renowned throughout the capital for his great contributions to public life, but he had a dark side too. Where are you going with this, Von Zieks? I suppose the police are dealing with the aftermath of his nefarious activities, are they? That's enough. Coppers like me have duties to carry out when we're not at liberty to talk about. That's all you need to know. Duties conferred by Lord Stronghart, I presume. The Lord Chief Justice appears to have great faith in you, Inspector. The bottom line is, if you want to get more out of me, you're gonna need Lord Stronghart's paw print first. What's all this about? It's like there's something going on between Gregson and Lord Von Zieks here. Well, it would appear that the Inspector has revealed all he is at liberty to reveal. Mr. Graydon, let us return to your testimony. Gladly, my lord. In other words, I have absolutely no reason to break into the shop later on that night.
Hold it!
But perhaps you'd seen something of value amongst the forfeited items. No, not at all. Oh? A valuer has been brought in by the police to assess everything in the shop. Without exception, every article on the shelves is common or garden bric-a-brac. In that case, it's clear that you broke into the shop later that day in order to recover Mr. McGilded's disc. Have you not been listening, man? Even if I had wanted to recover the disc, you may recall that it had been seized by the police that afternoon. There's no more in the shop that night than I. As I keep saying, I simply had no reason to break in. So there was nothing of Mr. McGilded's left in the shop that night. Nothing this man might have been after. I wonder if that's really true. You know, if you have some evidence, let him have it. I'm dying to see that irritably accused expression of his crumble. Do I have something? Mr. McGilded slipped the disc into his coat pocket and had it deposited at the window banks. Then, when he realized he was going to be arrested on suspicion of the omnibus murder, he threatened Gina and forced her to take the redemption ticket. There's no doubt about it. That witness is lying through his pearly white teeth. The police were obviously after anyone left behind as Mr. McGilded as well. That's why Inspector Gregson ended up taking the disc into custody that day. But Grexy being very strange about all this. There's a reason for that, I'm sure. I just don't know what it is. For now, we need to focus on exposing the fact that Mr. Graydon is lying in his testimony. Okay. Hold up. So... we got a hint at this last one. One of these redemption tickets should be right. Small box.
Objection!
I think this one, right? The disc was deposited at Mr. Windibank's on Magnus McGilded's instructions. You knew that, and you went there with the intention of obtaining it for yourself.
Objection!
Conjecture again. In any case, the disc was taken into custody by the police that afternoon. The witness had no reason to visit a pawnbrokery again.
Objection!
Sorry, my learned friend. But that's not true. What? Mr. McGilded had another article in pawn at Windibank's. As this second pawnbroker ticket proves. There were 2 articles belonging to Mr. McGilded in Windibank's pawnbrokery, and the reason you broke into the shop that night was to recover the second one. Together with your 2 accomplices, the Skulkin brothers. There is a second ticket. This is the second ticket, is it? What had the man deposited? The article description reads, one small box. A rather vague description, it seems to me. Are you suggesting I broke into the pawnbrokery with these clowns in order to steal some trinket box? I believe there's some adequate grounds to suspect that you did. This is absurd. Why on earth would I do such a thing? Once the article had been forfeited, I could simply walk into the shop and purchase it. There'd be absolutely no need for me to resort to theft. That's a good point. Indeed, the witness makes a solid argument. So that means, for some reason, this Graydon fella needed that small box that very night, doesn't it?
Objection!
It's time to put an end to this nonsense, my lord. Could you be a little less cryptic, Lord Von Zieks? I do hate to ruin my learned friend's argument, but the truth is quite incontrovertible. On the night in question, no small box was taken from Winterbake's pawnbrokery. And rest assured, the prosecution can prove it. What? Good gracious. Inspector, show the photographic prints to the court, if you please. Yes, sir. Prints. These prints were taken from one of the detective's security cameras. How are these red-handed recorders again? As previously explained, using this plan of the shop's layout, the victim's establishment was furnished with the automatic cameras in 2 locations. One was set to capture the counter where Mr. Winterbank received his customers. The other was set to capture the shelves on which the articles placed for sale was forfeited. According to the information on this ticket, Mr. McGill's small box would have been forfeited already, 2 days before the incident, at 9 a.m. on the 13th of April to be precise, which means it would have been on the shelves of the forfeited items in the shop front. Now, what I have here is a print taken by one of the cameras 2 hours before the incident. That is 11 p.m. on 15th of April. The victim certainly had a very full shop, it would appear. And then there we have another print. It was taken about 2 hours after the incident. Let's see, so we have 2 pictures to compare. Though I must say the placing them side by side leaves me cold. I'm not really seeing... Hear me. It's starting to make my head ache. Obviously, at Scotland Yard, we considered theft as one possible motive in this case. We explored the possibility that something had been taken in addition to the victim's life. So your men have already compared these 2 prints thoroughly, Inspector? Yes, sir. We counted every single item in each of these 2 photographic prints. And the Yard conclusion is that exactly the same number are present in both. In other words, nothing was taken from the pawnbrokery on the night in question, and my learned friend's assertion is nothing more than a hopeful fantasy. I don't believe it. If I could just be shown that he stole Mr. McGill's pawn box, I might have been able to break him down at last. You know what, Bruno? I've been thinking. I wonder if these 2 photographs really are exactly the same. What? So, counsel, in the light of the evidence put forward by the prosecution, what is your position? It seems that, in fact, on the night in question, nothing was stolen from the victim's establishment. Do you accept the prosecution's assertion? I don't know. Could there be some hidden discrepancy in these 2 photographic prints somewhere? Or use a piece of evidence. Before I give my answer, my lord, I'd like to try something if I may. Try something? What do you mean, counsel? I need to use a certain piece of evidence from the court record to identify the discrepancy. I'm not entirely sure I follow. Which piece of evidence do you intend to use to help you identify a discrepancy between 2 photo prints? It's almost like we did this before or something.
Take that!
I'd like to use this device, my lord. View the 2 prints stereoscopically. Ooh, yes, you've got the bug at last. You can't resist it, can you? You've got the cross-eyed compulsion. Juror number 3. What a surprise. Come on, Bruno. Let's put the pictures in place and see what this wonderful contraption shows us. There we go. Now, look to the eyepiece. I wasn't sure at first, but there's a clear discrepancy between these 2 prints. What? You must identify the location in question for the court, counsel. Indicate the precise location of the discrepancy of which you speak.
Take that!
Granted, these 2 prints are almost identical. However, there is one minor discrepancy between them. What? Oh yeah, it shifted locations. I see now. When you view the 2 pictures stereoscopically, a single area stands out as being different. The location of this small box. Wait. Unbelievable. By Jove, you're right. How extraordinary. What this tells us is very simple. Mr. McGillicud's small box was indeed not stolen from Winterbanks the night in question. However, there can be no doubt that somebody picked up this particular box and then returned it to its place on the shelves. Are you suggesting the same small box originally deposited by Mr. McGillicud is in fact... Yes, the very same small box I just identified in those photographic prints.
Objection!
Mindless guesswork. What if it was? So a box was moved on the shelf. Nothing was stolen, which means quite simply that nothing has changed. That may be true, but... Alright, Mr. McGillicud's box wasn't stolen then. But doesn't the fact that it was moved like that change things? You know what? Yeah, let's say it changes everything. I'm not sure how. I believe this changes everything about the case. How can that possibly be? The crucial point is the fact that what was moved was a small box. In other words, we have to consider what might have been inside that box. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that we need to examine that box as soon as possible. A vital piece of evidence is sitting on the shelves at Winterbanks as we speak.
Objection!
It won't be necessary. Some little box belonging to a man who died 2 months ago can't possibly be relevant to this trial. The court does not uphold your objection, Lord Von Zieks. Bailiff, arrange for an officer to go to Baker Street at once. Obtain the small box in question and bring it here for further examination. We should have a report within half an hour. I think perhaps we should recess for a short while until the evidence is brought forth. To be hoodwinked by such a farce. Disappointing. I beg your pardon, Lord Von Zieks? This is nothing but a smokescreen. A Nipponese specialty, it would seem. What are you trying to say? My learned friend has persisted with the same line of reasoning from the very beginning. That this witness's intent was to steal an article belonging to Mr. McGillicud from the pawnbrokery. Yet common sense tells us that none of the articles have been valuable enough to be worth stealing in the first place. Exactly. It would be beyond absurd to break into a place for a purpose of stealing such commonplace property. If your lordship recalls, Mr. McGillicud perished 2 months ago, immediately after the conclusion of his trial. A trial in which he was found not guilty. A trial in which was established he was an upstanding member of society, as the reputation implied, in fact. So I propose a toast to my learned friend in his most insightful defense. The articles this upstanding member of society pawned were merely entirely ordinary. A black overcoat just happened to have a music box disc in one of its pockets, and a small box. I assure you, I wouldn't accept even if the man tried to make a gift of such things to me. You know, that does make rather a lot of sense. It's not as if it was gold or jewels, is it? Goodness knows, Mr. McGillicud was rich enough. Or he could deposit cash at a pawnbrokery, I'm quite certain of it. The prosecution's argument is undeniably compelling. It is incumbent on the defense now to bolster its argument. To explain what possible significance these commonplace articles pawned by the fine citizen could have. Well, counsel, is your argument in fact demonstrable? Are you able to show proof that the disc or the box are in any way tangible way related to this case? Well, what's the matter, Runo? We know that they're related, don't we? They're both vital pieces of evidence. Of course, you and I both know that. We know Mr. McGillicud's true character, and we know the disc is significant, even if we don't know why. But if we explain all that to the court at this point, we'll have to acknowledge that Mr. McGillicud's acquittal 2 months ago was a mistake. That the defense's argument was flawed, based on false information. Oh no, and that would mean admitting that Gina committed perjury. But Ginny, could it be that Van Zieks knows? Is that why he's doing this now? Because he's anticipated everything? Maybe this could be a great opportunity for us. Sorry? What do you mean, Iris? Well, what is it you always say, Bruno? Sooner or later, the truth comes out. Every time. Alright, the exact significance of the things that Mr. McGill deposited in Mr. Winterbank is something that only Gina can explain to the court. But if I put her on the stand to testify about that, it could critically damage our chances of winning this case. What's the right thing to do here? Have her testify. My lord, the defense would like to make a proposal. Oh, what proposal, counsel? While the court awaits the arrival of Mr. McGill's small box, I would like to call the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade, to the witness stand. The defendant? To what end? It is to do with the various articles deposited at Mr. Winterbank, by Mr. McGill, my lord. Miss Lestrade has information relating to them. I believe it would be beneficial for the court to hear what she has to say. It will prove the significance of the articles in question once and for all. Well, well, things are becoming interesting. I presume you've considered the implications of the testimony you're proposing. In particular, the impact it will have on the accused's standing, and indeed your own. I have. Lord Van Zieks, would you care to explain that last remark? The prosecution accepts the defense's proposal. I move to interrupt the cross-examination of the current witnesses and hear from the accused herself. Very well. If you have no objection. So the court will now hear the testimony of the defendant, Miss Gina Lestrade. You witnesses currently in the stand may step down until further notice. Then I shall bid you good day. Wait. You, sir, shall remain in the stand while Miss Lestrade testifies. As you wish. All right then, Gina. It's time. I know this will be hard, but please, put your faith in me here. Good luck, Bruno. The articles that Mr. McGill had deposited in Winterbank's pawnbrokery are intimately related with the omnibus case, the trial of which we heard in the courtroom 2 months ago. Yes, and I remember this young lady has brought before me in the trial as well. That's right, my lord. Her testimony helped to establish the innocence of the defendant, Mr. McGill. The omnibus case was interesting, to say the least. And here we are all again, the same players in the trial, facing each other once more. A twist of fate, perhaps, my Nipponese friend. Allow me to recap the events of 2 months ago. An old brickmaker was stabbed to death in an omnibus running along London's winter streets. Apart from the victim, there was only one other person in the carriage, Mr. McGill. Naturally, he was prime suspect for the murder. As the trial progressed, another possibility emerged. That the murder in fact took place above the defendant's head in the roof deck, with the body that was being dropped through the skylight in the carriage below. It was Miss Lestrade whose testimony brought that possibility to light. At the time of the incident, Miss Lestrade was concealed under the seat in the carriage, hoping to pick the pockets of unsuspecting passengers. Then, immediately after the trial, having been acquitted of the murder, Mr. McGill had died in the very courtroom in the most extraordinary of circumstances. A mystery that remains unsolved even now, 2 months on, as indeed does the omnibus murder itself. Be that as it may, I recall neither the desk nor the small box being mentioned in any of those proceedings. Miss Lestrade, would you tell the court now, please, what really happened in the omnibus 2 months ago? I mean, I don't know what you mean. I already said what I know. And what about everything you told us yesterday from inside your prison cell? Please, Miss Lestrade. This is extremely important. But remember, little girl, if it transpires that you willfully withheld information in the trial 2 months ago, the Home Office will seek to prosecute you for perjury. And naturally, you will lose all credibility as a witness. Although, let's face facts, you have little credibility to lose. Don't listen to him. Please, you have to trust Runo now. We're on your side. Alright then. I'll talk. It's the right choice, Gina. Well, it would seem that my learned friend is hell-bent on bringing the entire courtroom down about his ears. So be it. I must confess that I'm struggling to understand what on earth is happening here. However, it would appear that Mr. McGilda's pawned articles in the extraordinary case of the omnibus harbor secrets of which have been heretofore unaware. So, Miss Lestrade, you will give your testimony before the court about the events 2 months ago. You will reveal the truth, a commodity solely lacking in your original statements. This is it then. Everything's going to come out. Like Von Ziek said. This could bring the whole courtroom down about my ears, but as a lawyer, I'm prepared to take that risk. The truth is that Brickmaker Co. was in the cabin of the omnibus the whole time. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw that disc on the floor. All of a sudden, I heard a scream from above me head, and the pair on the roof deck went off to call the slops. That's when Mr. McGill slipped the driver some tin to do run to the pawn shop roundabout. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I seen or heard. Good grief, this is outrageous. What you've just told the court bears almost no resemblance to your testimony 2 months ago. As you say, my lord. Then there's every chance I may have adjudicated an error in Mr. McGillicud's trial. It sounds very much to me as if the man deliberately deceived this court in an effort to cover up the most wicked of schemes. Without doubt, your lordship is correct. A great injustice is done in this courtroom 2 months ago. The actions of the accused in that trial, of this witness, and of my learned friend are entirely inexcusable. I don't believe it. The whole trial was a farce? It was all lies? Because the fellow was brought to the court, just like the pickpocket. Forget that lawyer from the East. They were in on it all together. You're wrong, the lot of you. Sonora Hodo, the lawyer there, he didn't know nothing about it. Humbug. I don't think so. Are we really expected to believe that? He really stitched everyone up, didn't he? What an aberration. To get a man off scot-free. Unforgivable. Stop. The lies have to stop. Stop. Yes, the defense made a terrible error of judgment. I intend to take full responsibility and suffer whatever consequences are deemed appropriate. However, it's imperative that the court allows the witness to elaborate on her testimony, because the true significance of Mr. Miguel's pawned articles might come to light. Very well, my learned student friend. Given the depths of calamity you have just plunged yourself into, this may well be worth hearing. Words fail me. The situation is utterly deplorable, Mr. Norohodo. Yes, my lord. I will decide upon your fate following the conclusion of this trial. Of course, my lord. Blimey, Mr. Norohodo. Now, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination. The truth is that Brickmaker Co. was in the cabin of the omnibus the whole time.
Hold it!
And you were hiding in the cabin at the time as well, weren't you, Miss Lestrade? If I remember rightly, in the storage compartment underneath one of the seats. Yeah, that's right. It's pitch black under there, so you can't see nothing at all. Now, in your testimony 2 months ago, I feel certain that you claimed Mr. McGilda was a sole passenger, did you not? False testimony, my lord. That's what he told me I had to say. But it's important that you tell the truth now. Were Mr. McGilda and the victim acquaintances? I don't know, but I did hear him talking a lot. What were they talking about? Well, I couldn't hear too well, but if I had to say, I think it was about the money or something. He kept talking about buying and not buying. Perhaps business dealings of some kind? Well, anyway, they got louder and louder. It started to sound like a proper fight. I was pretty scared by then, but I dared to breathe. And then, all of a sudden, I heard a noise like someone keeling over on the floor. It was booming loud and all. And I believe you left out an involuntary scream. Yeah, that's what gave me away. When the Irishman dragged me out from under the seat, I saw the disc on the floor. Actually, okay, we gotta press that.
Hold it!
Was the disc you saw this disc? Yeah, I reckon it probably was. It was right next to the cove lying on the floor. Could this disc have belonged to the victim, perhaps? I don't know, but Mr. McGilda picked it up pretty smartish. And then he sat the cove with a knife in his belly up on the seat. What did he say to you at the time? He told me not to say a word about what I had seen or heard to no one, about the disc and all. I was dead scared. When he was looking at me, I thought, if I didn't go along with it, I'd get stuck with that knife too. But he started asking me loads of questions, like what my name was and where I lived and all that. He asked me that about being a diver too. And after a while, what had happened to the carriage was noticed. Yeah, that's right. First there was a kind of rapping noise. All of a sudden I hear a scream over my head, and a pair on the roof deck went to call the slops.
Hold it!
There were two gentlemen occupying the seats on the roof deck, I believe. That's right. They must have looked down through the skylight and noticed the cove with the knife in his guts. When they screamed, the driver pulled up on the horses and Mr. McGilda got me out of sight. Out of sight? Where? Back under the seat where I started off. Once the carriage came to a halt, the two coves from the roof ran to fetch the slops. They immediately left to fetch the police. It would appear that they were entirely unrelated to the incident. So that left McGilda, the driver, and you still at the scene. Yeah, only the driver didn't know I was there because I was under the seat. I heard the cabin door open and a voice from outside. The driver, yes. He also testified in the trial, I believe. A fellow who went by the name Bippo, if my memory serves. What did Mr. McGilda and the driver say to each other? I don't know what happened and stuff like that mainly. That's when Mr. McGilda slipped the driver some tin to do a run to the pawn shop roundabout. That pawn shop obviously being Windibanks on Baker Street. Just a moment, counsel. Do you mean to tell me that the driver gave false testimony in that trial as well? Perhaps the excursion to the pawnbrokery slipped his mind when he was in the stand. Indeed, Lord Von Zeeks. Mr. McGilda took off his coat and gave it to the driver. He folded it up all careful-like before handing it over. When I saw him do that, I remember thinking, that coat and what was in it has got to be worth a few bob. Yes, Gina was sure the disc must be worth more than Mr. Winterbank was suggesting, wasn't she? I remember her quibbling with him over the price that afternoon at the pawnbrokery. The driver looked pretty happy when Mr. McGilda flashed some brass in his face and went running off at a lick. Then the bobtrot called to me and told me to come out from the drag's cabin. He threatened me not to snitch, not to say nothing to no one about what I'd seen or heard. Threatened you how exactly? Told me I'd only been able to scamper if I did exactly what he said, which included giving false testimony in court 2 months ago. Yeah, that's it. There was one other thing he said, which was... He told me and I had to hang on to the ticket from the pawn shop and make sure not to lose it. The ticket? Well, I never. That if he didn't show up to get the ticket off me before 2 months passed, I had to go to the pawn shop and pay the money to keep it in lug, to stop it being forfeited. He left me with some brass to pay for it. But really, why on earth would Mr. McGilda have gone to such a thing? Depositing his overcoat with the pawnbroker before the arrival of the police. Makes no sense at all. It seemed to be only one logical explanation, my lord. What Mr. McGilda had the driver depose of Windibanks had something he didn't want the police to see. Something very important that he needed to hide it at all costs. Anyway, after that, he let me go, so I legged it before the coppers showed up. Well done, Gina. It can't have been easy to tell the truth like that. He's really put her faith in you, Runo. Yes, and to thank her, she'll have to face a charge of perjury once this trial is over. So I need to use the time we have now to get as much information out of her as possible. It's time to really go for it. Press her on every statement. I suppose I should. Oh, and another thing. What's that? Take a look at those two. Isn't it strange that they've been whispering to each other the entire time? Yes, it is strange. It looks like they're having a secret discussion about something. I'm not sure I'm completely comfortable with that. I wonder if there's anything I could do about it.
Hold it!
I did press her on everything, though.
Excuse me.
Inspector, Mr. Graydon. Blimey, you trying to give me a heart attack? You have been whispering to each other for quite some time now. Tell us, what is the discussion about? Discussion? With this fella? Pull the other one, Sunshine. You think I got anything to talk with a shady gent like this? I have nothing to say to this uncouth detective after he deprived me of that disc that was so rightfully mine. They've clearly been talking the entire time I've been cross-examining Gina. It's as if they've been negotiating. Thank you, Miss Lestrade. Thank you, Counsel. I've heard enough. I believe we now have reasonable understanding of what actually transpired in the omnibus. It would appear on the night 2 months ago, a negotiation was taking place on the omnibus. A negotiation concerning this disc. However, matters did not run smoothly. When the parties involved began to quarrel over the price, Mr. Riota took what he wanted by force, at the expense of the other man's life. Which proves my point. The disc is clearly extremely valuable in some way. I don't understand why as of yet. And 2 days ago, precisely 2 months after the omnibus incident, Mr. Miguel's coat and its contents were due to be forfeited. I didn't know what I should do with the ticket. I mean, the cove died right after his trial, I knew that. So you decided that you would try to claim the articles as your own. Well, why not, eh? They were only going to be forfeited. Why shouldn't I have got them?